Forbes senior editor with one of the coolest names ever, Zack Greenburg is here. I love that name.
Started from the bottom, man, floor to the ceiling. The guest we have today writes about so they're billions. His hip-hop cash kings list is read by millions. Senior editor at Forbes, and his books I'm feeling. Empire State of Mind was Jay-Z's Unconcealing. And Michael Jackson Inc. showed the king of pop's brilliance. He wrote Three Kings about Diddy, Dre, and JN. And now he's here to talk about the A-list angels that he penned. He's Zack Greenburg, he's on the show again. 3, 2, 1, let this interview begin.
And if you don't know, now you know, you know. And if you don't know, now you know, you know.
I've written Forbes covers on Kanye West, Katy Perry, Ashton Kutcher, Kendrick Lamar, Marshmello, you name it. I'm Zack Greenburg. I'm a senior editor at Forbes. I've also written for New York Times, Washington Post, Billboard, Vibe, Sports Illustrated, Library of Congress, you name it. My real passion, I'd say, is writing books. I've written several books. The latest one is called A-List Angels, How a Band of Actors, Artists, and Athletes Hacked Silicon Valley. Yeah, I think when I speak, people in the audience maybe at first think, what could I possibly learn from, Diddy? He's a famous, near billionaire. How could I possibly take something that he's done and apply it to my own life? But, it may seem that who they are, what they do is kind of inaccessible to the average person. The reality is that somebody like Diddy got to where he is because he does the little things. I think being in the room with somebody like a Kanye West or a Katy Perry, you just want to take notes. You dig in, you look for the truth. And a lot of times, the truth is not so sexy. But with a lot of entrepreneurs, there is that kind of messy middle of their careers, from in between the idea and the final execution, when the entrepreneur is looking around and, encountering obstacles and overcoming them. For example, in my Jay-Z book, some of the best parts of it, the most valuable parts of it for aspiring entrepreneurs, are how he encountered and overcame those obstacles, as opposed to, what he did once he was already a billionaire. Once you're a billionaire, it gets easier, but how can you respond to the challenges that are thrown in your way to get to that point? My speaking style is very conversational. I'm telling stories, right? I want to, just like with my writing, put the audience there with me in whatever it was that I was doing, so that they can be there to absorb the same lessons. Whether it's books or giving speeches, I think you should be proud of everything you do, and to me, again, it goes back to the story. Are you telling an engaging story? Are you making people smile? Are you providing value? Are you teaching them something? And is everybody having a good time? That's how it should be. I think if I'm an event planner and I look at Zack Greenburg, I think here's a guy who is not going to disappoint me. He's not going to make me look bad. He's going to come here and he's going to translate from these people who he's interviewed, from these people he's written stories about and books about, into actionable items for my audience. If you want to learn more about me, potentially book me for an event, check out zogspeaking.com. If you fill out the form, you will get some of the rarest pieces of the Zog archive. That I can promise you.
And I was obsessed with this car as a child,
Is there any shoe that Countach is, kind of represented in?
There's a little bit of Lamborghini in everything I do.
On today's show, we interview the Forbes senior editor, Zack Greenburg, on how Kanye West created the Yeezy brand, what it's like to interview Katy Perry, Justin Bieber, and other super successful entertainers. On today's show, Zack Greenburg shares his path from the campus of Yale to becoming a senior editor at Forbes.
Get ready to enter the Thrivetime Show.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
We started from the bottom, now we're on the top. Teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. Z's bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's CNC up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you.
Yes, Yes and yes. Dr. Z, my friend, what do we commonly refer to as our business Bible? What do we always say?
We always quote Forbes. I mean,
Forbes.
Forbes is our business Bible.
That's
I mean,
what we do.
If it's in Forbes, book it. Book it, Dano.
That's Oklahoma Man Law 1.273. Always quote
I mean,
Forbes.
every entrepreneur, I mean, that if that's on their bucket list to be on the cover of Forbes, I mean, and I don't, I could be on the cover of Forbes and one of those little bitty like inserts in the corner.
That's all you need.
Like this just in, Clay and Robert, boom, they're boomtastic. They're,
Well, this
boomerific.
guy
Just a
writes
little insert.
Forbes cover stories. So I'm looking at the website. It's zogreenburg.com. And Kendall, if we can put the camera on it, ZOGREENBURG, Zoe Greenburg. You can see here. This man has done the article with Katy Perry, the cover story. Ashton Kutcher, Justin Bieber just did a sit-down interview with Kanye West. Zack O'Malley Greenburg, welcome on to the Thrivetime Show. How are you?
All right, good to be here.
I am so glad you came to Tulsa, Oklahoma to visit us, my friend. Would you have you been overwhelmed, underwhelmed so far? What's going on as you're processing all things Tulsa, Oklahoma?
I've been very pleasantly whelmed.
Well,
yeah,
nice.
Wow, that's wild.
overwhelmed feels like a bad thing sometimes. You don't want to be overwhelmed. You want to be underwhelmed. You want to be like pleasantly whelmed.
Wow,
right?
that's well said.
I give you a mega point.
He does get a mega point for that.
Now, how would you describe what you do for Forbes now? I think a lot of people don't know when they hear the phrase senior editor. What does that mean?
Sure, it means a lot of stuff, and not all of it is editing. For me, the kind of bread and butter of it all, for me at Forbes over the past decade, has been doing these big stories on the biggest figures in media and entertainment, particularly music and particularly hip-hop, which is kind of my passion over there. So, dating back to the very beginning of my time at Forbes, the way I got into it was an editor walked into my cubicle, and this was, 2007. I just started. She said, "Hey, you're under 30. Do you like hip-hop?" I said, "I love hip-hop." She said, "Great. We're going to put together the first ever list of the top-earning rappers in the world, and let's go do it." So I did it. We put it out. Jay-Z, Diddy, 50 Cent were in the top 3 in that order, I believe. And they were so excited to be recognized by Forbes that they made a song called I Get Money, the Forbes $1 Billion Remix.
Forbes, 1, 2, 3.
Been around the block, pal. Imagine what I got now. The Bentley, the Ferrari, maybe the Bugatti, dream to Maserati.
Yeah.
And then we were off to the races. So that editor came back and she said, "You should make this your thing." I did. She left, got her contacts, started kind of growing this part of the coverage, and kind of brought it up to all the way through the rest of media and entertainment and music, and started writing books on the side.
Previous to working at Forbes, what were you doing before that?
I was in college at Yale. I was writing for the Yale Daily News, not really about rappers, unfortunately.
Did you enjoy your time at Yale?
I did. I got to say, college newspapers, a lot of times have the kind of the setup and the resources, that a lot of major publications, don't these days, especially in smaller towns, to actually have, all these different desks, editors, people working. I mean, part of it is that we're all working for free 40 hours a week. So of course, you can make it work and not have to charge for subscriptions. But it really was, a truly functioning news organization, on a small scale that had a pretty big footprint. And, I got to kind of grow my, strengthen my writing muscles over there.
Were you into writing a lot as a kid growing up?
Yeah, my parents are both writers. They wrote about everything that I didn't end up writing about. So my dad wrote humor and thrillers, and my mom did kind of true crime stuff. So, I do business, hip-hop, music, media and entertainment, all the other stuff now.
And your wife's a psychologist.
Yeah, full-on psychiatrist. Yep.
Psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Does she?
That's like probably 4 extra years you're talking.
Has she determined why, on a deep, dark psychological level, why you write about entirely different things than your parents once wrote about? Is there some thing? Do we have a label for it?
Oh man, we'd have to get her on the line.
Have you guys talked about this?
We had an idea actually for a blog, which was that I would interview people and then she would psychoanalyze them. but we thought that might be breaking both some kind of journalistic and Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do now is this is
But it
gonna
sounds
be,
great, though. I mean, the concept's pretty cool.
Yeah.
This guy went from the cubicle to the top in terms of the top, one of the top of people, writers at Forbes there. And what I want to do is this is going to be a shameless name drop show.
Oh, let's do it.
So what I'm going to do, and I know when you're interviewing people, there's certain things you can share about the interview, certain things you can't, but I would just want to go, it's nothing but name drops, okay? So here we go. So when you're sitting down with Katy Perry and you're interviewing her for the cover story of Forbes called America's Pop Export, did you come up with the title for this?
I believe it was a collaborative process, but certainly think I suggested at least part of that one, sure. Yeah.
Who had the idea to interview Katy Perry?
That was me. I thought she'd be a great fit, for a lot of reasons at the time I did the story. I think it was 2014, 2015. She was one of the top earning, I think top 2 or 3 earning musical acts in the world. But people like Taylor Swift, maybe Lady Gaga were getting a little more ink. And, I thought one of the really cool things about Katy Perry was she sat down with me 2 hours, no publicist, no handlers, nobody in the room, and that was just the first interview. And she really dug in to her journey as an entrepreneur, and she wasn't kind of afraid of talking about money and wealth in the way that a lot of people I interview are. I think a lot of entertainers, they think, oh, if I talk about my wealth, people are going to think I'm a sellout. Not so much with hip hop. Hip hop, it's sort of like, no, we're gonna go get it, and we want you to enjoy this journey with us. But a lot of pop acts in particular are afraid that they'll be seen as sellouts. And Katy really owned it. She was like, no, I want to be a role model to all those young women out there, and to know that you can be your own boss. You can go get the thing that you want, and build a business, be an entrepreneur. And I really want to own that as opposed to sort of shying away from it. So I really respected that a lot, and I think it really made the story come alive. Also, we did a second interview in Italy, which was the beginning of the story, in Italy, in Rome, and that really made the story pop. I thought that became the intro of the story, and where a lot of the color and the drama came from.
Who pays for you to go out there?
Oh, that's Forbes, yeah.
So Forbes, so you fly out there, and you're interviewing. Do you use a
coach, but yeah, fly out there.
Do you use a pen? Are you using a pen? Or are you typing? Do you record the interviews?
Yeah, recorder, and then usually notes as well.
Notes, okay.
Sometimes 2 recorders just to be safe.
And you go in with all the pre-written questions. What do you bring to the table before you interview the person?
I usually bring, let's say a dozen or so questions, depending on how long the story's going to be. But I find the best kind of interviews are the ones where you're not just kind of ticking through a list, right? You're having a conversation with this person, and you kind of just ask follow-up questions, see where it goes. You follow the flow, and I think in a way it almost stops feeling like an interview anymore. It stops feeling like a chore.
Yeah.
Instead, you're just having an interesting conversation with an interesting person.
Bring it back.
I usually bring, let's say a dozen or so questions, depending on how long the story's going to be. But I find the best kind of interviews are the ones where you're not just kind of ticking through a list, right? You're having a conversation with this person, and you kind of just ask follow-up questions, see where it goes. You follow the flow, and I think in a way it almost stops feeling like an interview anymore. It stops feeling like a chore.
Yeah.
Instead, you're just having an interesting conversation with an interesting person.
And so you end up, after 4 hours with Katy Perry, how much material do you have at this point? How many pages of transcripts are we talking about?
You're probably dozens of pages, but
Dozens.
but then there are the notes, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the notes I think really made this story come alive. Like I was alluding to earlier, the beginning of the story, you find me in a Mercedes van, roaming the streets of Rome. I guess,
no pun.
Rome.
That would get edited into something a little more descriptive.
When in Rome, Rome.
When in Rome, I eat Italian food. Okay, there we go.
And on the phone, my phone rings. It's like, all right, you need to stay in the van for 1 more mile, and then at the end of that journey, you're going to get out at the light, and you're going to walk down the street for 200 feet until you see the red arch, and it's like out of a spy novel. So I get out of the car, I walk the mile, and I turn and I look. I'm like, which arch? It's Rome. There's going to be a lot of arches, and it's like, okay, you're going to look for a lady in a big white hat. Lady in a big white hat, and I look down, and there's a lady in a big white hat and sunglasses, and you wouldn't know it if you hadn't had her security team on the phone, but it was Katy Perry. And so they had to do this whole charade because she was being stalked by paparazzi. So they had 2 Mercedes vans, and she was in one and I was in the other, and I didn't realize I was the decoy.
Oh, wow.
And to kind of get them off my back. And so, you know, the door opened and out pops some American guy, and they're like, all right, whatever. Off they go. And then I go meet up, and we do a tour of the Coliseum. And the whole story was about, you know, it's here's Katy Perry, this giant arena act, but here we are in the original arena, you know, the
that's
Coliseum
cool.
in
Yeah.
Rome. And that was kind of, from there we jump into the business.
Do you get nervous when you're interviewing Katy Perry? I mean, have you ever found yourself saying, Katy, you know, what was your name? I mean, sir, I mean, can I, you know, do you ever get nervous at all? Have you ever gotten nervous?
You know, maybe in my first year doing this, a little bit I'd get butterflies and stuff, but you know, at some point, people are just people, and you know, and it's fun to I'd say it's fun to interview interesting people, whether they're famous or not, and you just kind of get used to it. It's like if you interview somebody who's really, really tall, you know, you're like, dang, you're really tall. But if you're only interviewing basketball players, it just sort of stops being
they're all
a
tall.
thing.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You're just like, okay.
Is
well,
Katy Perry funny?
Yeah, she's funny and she's very earnest. I think people don't maybe realize that. There's you know, not like she doesn't put on airs. She's very direct.
Yeah, she seems like a down-to-earth kind of gal.
Yeah, 100%.
Just off the top of it, I'm going to ask you this question, just like
wow.
first thing that comes to your mind.
Here we go.
Of all the interviews you've done of celebrities, A-list celebrities, which one has surprised you the most? First thing to mind.
You know, the name that pops into my head is Ludacris.
Okay, explain.
Yeah. You know, I mean, he has this kind of outrageous persona,
Right.
In his music.
Outrageous name. I mean, you know,
exactly.
I mean,
it's in
everything's
the name.
outrageous.
What do you expect?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
But you know, I was interviewing him, and he was kind of getting into, you know, his portfolio and these businesses that he owns and this and that, and he's creating this company that he wants to hand off to his daughter when she gets old enough, and you know, this kind of stuff. And I was like, you know, so how do you kind of justify that side of you with, you know, Luda?
Yeah.
And he said, well, you know, if you think about it, like, if you have a buddy, like, he's like, think about your best friend, and it's like, what's your best friend's name? Julian. Okay. Well, what's his nickname? It's like Chops. You know, you never know. You never know. So just like that, you know, you got Chris Bridges on the weekday, but he's Luda in the club, and he really kind of bounces back and forth between these two different personas as needed. But you know, I think he kind of inhabits both of them. You know, pretty well, I'd say, and to great financial advantage.
When you're sitting in the room with Kanye West, you went to Kanye's home, correct?
Indeed.
And people could look up the article. What's the name of the article people can look up right
It's called Kanye's Second Coming. It's on Forbes.com, or there's magazines floating around with it too.
So when you fly out to his home and you arrive there, how would you describe the interior of Kanye West's home?
It's almost like a monastery. It's just very simple, kind of alabaster color. Everything is, you know, it's high ceilinged, and in fact, it's made from all the floors are made from this special paste that you can only get in Belgium, or you can only have the crew that makes it is based in Belgium. And so if you so much as scuff the floor, they have to fly in all these guys from Belgium to fix it. So, you know, I walked into this interview wearing my Air Jordans because I thought it would be an interesting conversation piece, you know. Because Yeezy.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And the minute I walk in, they're like, "Oh, you have to put these little booties on your Jordans," you know. But it wasn't because of any, you know, hatred for Air Jordan. It was because he didn't want his floors scuffed. So, you know, did that, and that was kind of like a nice little twist. But then Kanye walks in, you know, in his own Yeezys with no little cloth booties on. He's like, whatever, it's my place. Do what I want.
What is he like? What is his personality type like? I mean, I know you were with him in a room for a long time doing the interview, and people can see the actual video, some of the video of you interviewing him on Forbes. What was it like, you know, sitting down with the guy? How would you describe the aura he puts off, the energy?
Yeah, I think, you know, he will just sink his teeth into whatever idea is on his mind, you know, at the moment, and he won't let go.
I'll be working on home designs and looking at references from 3,000 years ago and reading the Old Testament at the same time, so it's like a soundtrack to the visuals of the shapes and the ideas and ideals of what we're creating.
And you know, he can't really. I think he can't let himself give it up until he's you know, kind of like perfected it to his specifications. And you can tell he has so much passion for each individual thing that he's doing. So, you know, for me, when I was interviewing him, I think the thing that he was the most fixated on was this housing concept. Like he was building, he wanted to build these, you know, these special, you know, specially designed homes that were done in the style of his own home, but for, you know, low income folks, to try to scale, you know, scale up something that could help people in the local community in LA. And he was talking to me about this in the interview, and we finished up around midnight, and he goes, "All right, well, I want to show you something." I said, "Okay." So he takes me outside, and I follow him back. I'm like, maybe he's got a workshop or whatever. And no, instead he ushers me into his Lamborghini SUV, and he cranks up the JS Bach, and off we go, barreling down the hill in the middle of the night. And after about 15 minutes, we come to a little bungalow in the woods. I'm like, all right, we get out. Inside there are three guys mashing away on laptops. And on these laptops are these presentations that they're about to give on this housing concept. And he's like, change the font there, change the color of that. And after about a half an hour, he seems satisfied. And he says, I want to show something else. Come on. So he opens the back door. Off we go into the woods. And now it's 1 a.m. and we're, you know, somewhere in the Santa Monica Mountains, the foothills of Santa Monica Mountains, you know, pitch black, middle of the night, by the lights of our iPhones. We're going up this trail deeper and deeper into the woods.
Does he own this land?
Yes.
Okay.
Or at least that's what I had been
led
to believe in, given no reason otherwise. So, but my main concern at this point is, you know, I'm going to get eaten by a mountain lion.
Yeah.
And Kanye will too, and I'm just going to be a footnote in the obituary.
The dude that Kanye died with.
Right, exactly. So after about 5-10 minutes, we come to a clearing, and in the clearing, you know, so he stops, wordless, and we look up, and in the clearing are these like 30-foot tall structures, and you know, kind of like oblong, oval type shaped things, and he leads me inside, and they are the physical embodiment of these structures.
The prototypes
that he's been trying to create.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, hey Kanye, can I turn my recorder on and so you can explain, you know, what we're looking at here? And he goes, no, I want you to paint a picture with your words. So I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to have to get out my little notebook here. And
Sure.
scribbling away.
Get some words down.
5 minutes later, he's like, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. Back down the hill into the Lamborghini and back to my rental car, and, you know, in bed by 3 a.m. So,
what time did you start your interview with him?
8 p.m.
Really?
Maybe, yeah, on a Sunday night.
8 to 3 with Kanye.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. See,
where's wife? Was his wife around?
She was around. She, you know, offered us water, stuff like that.
Did she have anything to do with the interview? Did she sit down and be part of it at all, or was it just?
She talked to me separately for the story. You know,
Okay,
she talked
cool.
about how they bounce business ideas off of each other, and you know, some of the ways that his sensibility for design, you know, has helped some of the projects she's worked on. But yeah, I mean, that's what really stuck with me. You know, I mean, the story was about his Yeezy empire. And he was definitely, you know, that was clearly like a huge consideration for him. But he was so focused on this housing concept that, you know, he just couldn't. He couldn't.
Yeah, it was his next thing. It's his
move
next
away from
thing.
it. Yeah,
It's always the next thing with an entrepreneur. So, did he talk about the Yeezys? How did he? What was the? How did he get into the? How did he get into that?
Yeah, you know, he always loved to draw. He always loved to design. And when he was a kid growing up in Chicago, he would, you know, be sketching He would be sketching Jordan 1s, actually. He
really?
told me.
Yeah,
wow. Yeah. Just drawings because he liked them.
Yeah.
And he would get in trouble with his teachers because he was doing that instead of his, you know, math equations or what have you. And you know, and I think it took a backseat to the music for a while. But once he gained, you know, certain stature, he started being able to do these collaborations. So Yeezy began with Nike. He did a few different designs there.
You get marginalized by the corporations and what your messaging can be. Now, this is one thing where the conversation changes when you have a child, because it's always cool that they marginalize me. And I asked them when the Yeezy Red October is coming out. I asked them, Kanye West asked Nike, when does it come out? They said, we're not sure yet. Huh? You know, they let me design 2 shoes over 5 years, and I'm happy I could design them, but they ain't do me no favor because Eminem designed a shoe and Pharrell designed a shoe. I just designed the Yeezys. I turned up because I was in 4th grade designing Jordans, and I brought back that feeling. You ain't never felt about about a shoe since the Jordans, the way people feel about the Yeezys. I put that feeling, and the same feeling I put in College Dropout and Graduation and 808s, all that feeling that I put that feeling there. So then I started turning up in a BBC interview, and they came and said, okay, cool. We're going to give you a bigger sandbox to play in. It's not even like I even got a joint venture. I'm like, at least give me some royalties. Like, Michael Jordan got 5%. That business is $2 billion. He makes $100 million a year off of 5% royalty. I said, I need some type of royalty. Nike told me, we can't give you a royalty because you're not a professional athlete. I told them, I go to the Garden and play one on no one. I'm a performance athlete. And also,
did you
I'm
say
a
that
thinker.
in the meeting? Do you really say that in the meeting?
Did I really anything? Yes. Did I really everything? 100,000%.
Yes.
I'm 100,000%.
I would love to go on a meeting tour with
times.
Meeting, right? I want to go to the meeting tour.
Oh, because the thing is, it's people that work in offices trying to tell me how to think when I got a better perspective. I live in Paris.
I love, and I was there last night.
And New York and LA.
I was there last night, and I was moved by your rant last night.
And then, several years ago, pulled it over to Adidas. And, it's because he insisted on ownership. Even when he was with Nike, they weren't really paying him, but he owned the concept. He owned the Yeezy brand. And he took it over to Adidas, where he continues to own it. But, because he insisted on that 100% outright ownership, it enabled him to make that move.
Rapid fire. We have time for we have 4 minutes, three questions. 4 minutes, 3 questions. Here we go. Wes Carter, what question would you like to ask senior editor from Forbes, who made a series of poor life choices and has ended up in Tulsa, Oklahoma? He's not in Manhattan today. We've got him inside the studio here. What question do you have for him?
I'm wondering, out of all these interviews, I know a lot of them talk about their side projects going on. Have any of them really opened up about their thoughts on wanting to transform the music business itself, with all the new things coming out with streaming and Spotify and Apple Music? I mean, do they gravitate towards their own business in the music industry, or do you see they really focus on some of their side projects that they're trying to get other stuff going on?
I think it's a mix of both, but if you want to talk about changing the music industry, I think one of the most fascinating cases to look at, the 3 kings of hip-hop, Jay-Z, Diddy, Dr. Dre. I say 3 kings. I wrote a book with the same title in 2018, and in that book, and also in my new book, A-List Angels, I talk about how those 3 guys were like, you know what, we became entrepreneurs by necessity in the late 80s, early 90s because people weren't interested in hip hop. We created our own record labels. We created our own clothing lines.
Yep.
Now, we're going to create our own streaming services, or we're going to invest in existing ones. So Diddy invested in Spotify, Jay-Z bought Tidal, and Dr. Dre had Beats Music, which then became Apple Music. So, they each found a way to not only create the music, to create the stuff that comes out of that, but to own pieces of the next platforms that would deliver the music as well. And I think that's the kind of change, that's the kind of vision that the best of the best have. It's not just how to create the next big product. It's how do I create the next big category.
I will say this: if you're out there today and you've not yet purchased a copy of 3 Kings, Diddy, Dre, and Jay-Z, and hip hop's multi-billion-dollar rise, that is an incredible book. And in my hands, I have an early edition here of the new book here, A-List Angels: How a Band of Actors, Artists, and Athletes Hacked Silicon Valley. And I'm just telling you, I'm so fired up to read this book because, Zach, you write with such detail that if you're somebody who's remotely interested at all in business, you're going to love these books. But if you're somebody who likes music, which I do, you're going to love these books. Now, if you're somebody who likes entertainment, you're going to love these books. So it puts them all together because so many books, they're just drivel about we're just sort of talking about how successful somebody is, but his book deals with the messy middle. It tells you how they did it, how they got there. It's really the detail in here. A-List Angels, check out this book. I'm excited to read this book. Thank you for hand delivering it, by the way. Dr. Z, we have time for one more question before we hit up our next guest on the phone line. And Corey Minter with Trinity Employment stepped in. It's a laser show.
I know it's weird. It's a laser
boy.
show.
Oh.
Zach, what's next? What's next for you? What's next for you, bud?
Well, I think the next thing I really want to do is bring more of the storytelling to people in person. And so, if you check out zogspeaking.com, there's more details on, sort of some of the speeches that I give. But the idea of like telling these stories, bringing actionable advice to people, from having sat down with a lot of the leading figures in show business, what are the things that I can bring to the average entrepreneur, to the average person, that they can use in their careers, in their journeys? I think it's actually kind of surprising how much overlap there is.
Do you like speaking or writing better?
Man, I think it depends on the day. It's just
depends on how much I've been writing last week or speaking.
The grass is greener. You do a few big travel gigs in a row, and you're like, I just want to sit and write. But then and a lot of times when I'm really in crunch time on the books, I'll take a week or two off from Forbes, and I'll just kind of go hard on the book writing. And man, you just, after a couple of weeks, it's like you really would love to be out speaking to human beings again.
If you guys go to zogspeaking.com, zogspeaking.com, that stands for Zack O'Malley Greenburg. So zogspeaking.com, you can see samples of him speaking. So you can see, but I'm just telling you, if you're listening out there today and you own a company, a lot of times when your employees get a chance to hear stories about Justin Bieber and Kanye West, but it's practically, it actually practically can be related back to your business. That's fun.
That's fun.
It's entertainment. It's education. It's edutainment.
We call that edutainment.
That's what we call it. And now, without any further ado, 3, 2, 1, boom!
2 men, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses, 8 kids, 1 business coach radio show. It's the Thrivetime Business Coach Radio Show. Get ready to enter the Thrivetime Show.
That's it. Arms away.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
All right, Thrive Nation, welcome back to the conversation. It is the Thrive Time Show on your radio. And on today's show, I could not be more excited to interview today's guest. Today's guest, Zack O'Malley Greenburg. That's Zack O'Malley Greenburg. He is a senior editor for Forbes magazine, Forbes.com. If you ever see the hip hop's the richest list, or any of the lists involving where they'll actually show the wealth of hip-hop entrepreneurs and how they earned their wealth, it's usually, the article is usually written by Mr. Zack O'Malley Greenburg. And since graduating from Yale with a degree in American Studies, Zack O'Malley Greenburg, today's guest, has gone on to become not only the senior editor of media and entertainment at Forbes, but he's also the author of 3 best-selling books. His most recent book, 3 Kings, chronicles the lives of Diddy, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, and the rise of the hip-hop multi-million-dollar industry, the multi-billion-dollar industry. He's also written Michael Jackson, Inc., a Simon & Schuster release, which came out in 2014, which documented the rise and fall and then the return of the Michael Jackson empire. Also, he's written Jay-Z's book called Empire State of Mind. And I absolutely love Empire State of Mind. That book was released by Penguin, and that book is incredible. It explains to you how Jay-Z essentially went from the street corner to a corner office. Folks, this guy is filled with knowledge, but you might be saying to yourself, well, why do I care how hip-hop, how rappers made billions of dollars? Well, what you got to understand about hip-hop artists, and I'll start with Diddy, who used to go by the name Puff Daddy, is at his core, I believe him to be I believe that P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, I believe that he is an entrepreneur. At his core, I really, really do believe that Jay-Z is an entrepreneur. And at his core, I really do believe that Dr. Dre is just an entrepreneur. Dr. Dre was one of the first turntablists to really make a change in the way music was formatted. He's one of the first people to make hip-hop music mainstream. He was part of the group NWA, which stands for, I won't mention it on the air, but NWA. Then you think about, Jay-Z. Jay-Z is one of the first rappers to really become a household name for everybody. I think everybody knows Jay-Z and his wife Beyonce. These guys have a combined net worth right now of billions of dollars. And as of the time of the recording of today's talk, you have estimates are showing it from Forbes that Sean Diddy Combs is now worth $825 million. And Dr. Dre, remember Dr. Dre? He teamed up to build Beats headphones. He's worth an estimated $770 million. Think about that. Jay-Z's worth an estimated $900 million. I mean, these guys are doing well. Jay-Z's worth $900 million. Sean P. Diddy Combs is worth $825, and Dr. Dre is worth an estimated $770 million. And so in his new book, Three Kings, he documents how they did it. And I'm just telling you, if you look at the books that he's written that I've read, there are notes everywhere, and there are action items from cover to cover. There's so many practical steps that you can apply in your own life and business. So, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, I know he can't hear you, but please join me in welcoming the senior editor with Forbes. That's Zack O'Malley Greenburg onto the show. Zack, welcome to the Thrivetime Show. I am a massive fan of your work. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, I own 2 copies of your book, Empire State of Mind, the one where you break down the life and times of Jay-Z.
2 copies.
I do. I have one for the man cave, have one for the office. I got to tell you, it's kind of weird, but one has spent a lot of time with me in the bathtub as I'm taking notes, highlighting. And what impresses me about your books is that you do exhaustive research. You do exhaustive research. And one of the first things I saw you writing about back in the day was this thing called the hip-hop cash kings. Can you share with us why, as a writer at Forbes, you decided to start tracking the hip-hop cash kings?
Yeah, well, it was 2007. I had just graduated from college and started out at Forbes as a newbie reporter. And I was sitting there in my cubicle, and all of a sudden an editor came up and she said, "Hey, you're under 30. Do you like hip-hop?" And I said, "I love hip-hop." She said, "Great. Well, I want you to help me put together the first ever package on the top earning rappers." And I said, "Let's go." So I ended up writing the story about Tupac Shakur, who at the time was making more money dead than most rappers were alive. And then we ran this sidebar that we called the Hip Hop Cash Kings, and it was the top earning rappers who were alive. And the top 3 were Jay-Z, Diddy, and 50 Cent. And we shipped off the magazine, and I thought that was fun, and it didn't really cross my mind again until I was out in New Mexico for a different story reporting. And driving around the desert, I heard this song pop on the radio, and it went, "Forbes, 1, 2, 3. I get money, I get money." And I was like, what is going on?
There you go.
And in fact, it was Jay-Z and Diddy and 50 Cent, and they had put together the song to celebrate the launch of the Hip Hop Cash Kings list. And I think it was the first time a major publication had really recognized hip-hop in that way. I mean, there had been kind of, one-off stories and a lot of sort of novelty-type features, but this was us saying, here's the definitive accounting of earnings in this legit business. And it became an annual event. And shortly after the first one came out, the editor left and took a different job, and she said, "You should make this your thing." And I did. So she gave me her contact, and I ran with it and kind of developed it into being my baby, really.
And I don't mean to classify you or anybody who reads copious amounts of books and does a lot of research as a nerd. I will just classify myself as a nerd. I love reading and research. When you are in your car in New Mexico and you hear, "I get money," and you hear it and you're going, and at the end Jay-Z hops on with the verse and talks about Forbes.com. Were you crying? Were you hugging the dashboard? Did you pull over and have a weep-a-thon? I mean,
Get
what
to a
was going
truck
on?
stop and take a shower?
Yeah. I mean, I just remember thinking, holy cow, business journalism is a lot cooler than I ever thought it would be. And I think a lot of people at Forbes, they thought about that too. Like, oh my gosh, here's an audience that we have not been serving, and a slice of big business that we have not been covering, and that really nobody had been covering in that way.
Now, you are working on this thing called the Forbes 5, where it's the hip-hop's wealthiest artists of 2018, and the hip-hop, they're kind of the future mogul list. Can you share with us about the Forbes 5 and the hip-hop's future mogul list?
Sure. So there's three main hip-hop franchises within Forbes now. There's that original Cash Kings list, which are the highest paid acts on an annual basis. There's the Forbes 5, which is the 5 wealthiest rap acts overall in terms of net worth. And then there's the Future Moguls list, which is a qualitative kind of a cousin of our 30 under 30 list. So it's every year, the 10 rappers, producers, et cetera, the hip-hop musicians who we feel are the most likely to one day become members of either of those two other lists. And, they're all rolled out throughout the year, generally, a few months in between each one. And those are sort of the three main focal points for hip-hop coverage at Forbes.
Now, you in 2015, you gave a TEDx talk. You've given a lot of talks since then, but you gave a TEDx talk, and I liked that talk because it was just you rocking the mic for a good half hour of power, and you were talking about Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, and Diddy, how they had earned, at that point, a combined $740 million in 2014. And according to all estimates I can find, now Sean Jay-Z Carter is now worth about $900 million, I believe. Sean Diddy Combs is worth about $825, and Dr. Dre sitting around $770. My friend, I'd love to have you share your thoughts about how these three men built their fortunes. It's an astounding number. Can you share with us and you go take them in whatever order you want, but Dre, Jay-Z, Diddy, how did these guys go about amassing their fortunes?
Sure, yeah, and it's a fascinating question, and that's why I wrote my last book about it, Three Kings, and it kind of digs into the story of each one, and then kind of with the backdrop of the broader narrative of the business of hip hop. And what these guys all did is they took this thing that had been created in the South Bronx and in the 70s and the 80s, and
2 men, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses, 8 kids, 1 business coach radio show. It's the Thrivetime Business Coach Radio Show. Get ready to enter the Thrivetime Show.
That's it. Bombs away.
We started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we here. We started from the bottom, now we here.
All right, Thrive Nation, welcome back to the conversation. It is the Thrivetime Show on your radio. And on today's show, I could not be more excited to interview today's guest. Today's guest, Zack O'Malley Greenburg. That's Zack O'Malley Greenburg. He is a senior editor for Forbes magazine, Forbes.com. If you ever see the hip-hop's the richest list or any of the lists involving where they'll actually show the wealth of hip-hop entrepreneurs and how they earned their wealth, it's usually, the article is usually written by Mr. Zack O'Malley Greenburg. And since graduating from Yale with a degree in American Studies, Zack O'Malley Greenburg, today's guest, has gone on to become not only the senior editor of media and entertainment at Forbes, but he's also the author of 3 best-selling books. His most recent book, Three Kings, chronicles the lives of Diddy, Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, and the rise of the hip-hop multi-million-dollar industry, the multi-billion-dollar industry. He's also written Michael Jackson, Inc., a Simon & Schuster release, which came out in 2014, which documented the rise and fall and then the return of the Michael Jackson empire. Also, he's written Jay-Z's book called Empire State of Mind. And I absolutely love Empire State of Mind. That book was released by Penguin, and that book is incredible. It explains to you how Jay-Z essentially went from the street corner to a corner office. Folks, this guy is filled with knowledge, but you might be saying to yourself, well, why do I care how hip-hop, how rappers made billions of dollars? Well, what you got to understand about hip-hop artists, and I'll start with Diddy, who used to go by the name Puff Daddy, is at his core, I believe that P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, I believe that he is an entrepreneur. At his core, I really, really do believe that Jay-Z is an entrepreneur. And at his core, I really do believe that Dr. Dre is just an entrepreneur. Dr. Dre was one of the first turntablists to really make a change in the way music was formatted. He's one of the first people to make hip-hop music mainstream. He was part of the group NWA, which stands for, I won't mention it on the air, but NWA. Then you think about, Jay-Z. Jay-Z is one of the first rappers to really become a household name for everybody. I think everybody knows Jay-Z and his wife Beyonce. These guys have a combined net worth right now of billions of dollars. And as of the time of the recording of today's talk, you have estimates are showing it from Forbes that Sean Diddy Combs is now worth $825 million. And Dr. Dre, remember Dr. Dre? He teamed up to build Beats headphones. He's worth an estimated $770 million. Think about that. Jay-Z's worth an estimated $900 million. I mean, these guys are doing well. Jay-Z's worth $900 million. Sean P. Diddy Combs is worth $825, and Dr. Dre is worth an estimated $770 million. And so in his new book, Three Kings, he documents how they did it. And I'm just telling you, if you look at the books that he's written that I've read, there are notes everywhere, and there are action items from cover to cover. There's so many practical steps that you can apply in your own life and business. So, ladies and gentlemen, family and friends, I know he can't hear you, but please join me in welcoming the senior editor with Forbes. That's Zack O'Malley Greenburg onto the show. Zack, welcome to the Thrivetime Show. I am a massive fan of your work. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Hey, I own 2 copies of your book, Empire State of Mind, the one where you break down the life and times of Jay-Z.
2 copies.
I do. I have one for the man cave, have one for the office. I got to tell you, it's kind of weird, but one has spent a lot of time with me in the bathtub as I'm taking notes, highlighting. And what impresses me about your books is that you do exhaustive research. You do exhaustive research. And one of the first things I saw you writing about back in the day was this thing called the hip-hop cash kings. Can you share with us why, as a writer at Forbes, you decided to start tracking the hip-hop cash kings?
Yeah, well, it was 2007. I had just graduated from college and started out at Forbes as a newbie reporter. And I was sitting there in my cubicle, and all of a sudden an editor came up and she said, "Hey, you're under 30. Do you like hip-hop?" And I said, "I love hip-hop." She said, "Great. Well, I want you to help me put together the first ever package on the top earning rappers." And I said, "Let's go." So I ended up writing the story about Tupac Shakur, who at the time was making more money dead than most rappers were alive. And then we ran this sidebar that we called the Hip Hop Cash Kings, and it was the top earning rappers who were alive. And the top 3 were Jay-Z, Diddy, and 50 Cent. And we shipped off the magazine, and I thought that was fun, and it didn't really cross my mind again until I was out in New Mexico for a different story reporting. And driving around the desert, I heard this song pop on the radio, and it went, "Forbes, 1, 2, 3. I get money, I get money." And I was like, what is going on?
There you go.
And in fact, it was Jay-Z and Diddy and 50 Cent, and they had put together the song to celebrate the launch of the Hip Hop Cash Kings list. And I think it was the first time a major publication had really recognized hip-hop in that way. I mean, there had been kind of, one-off stories and a lot of sort of novelty-type features, but this was us saying, here's the definitive accounting of earnings in this legit business. And it became an annual event. And shortly after the first one came out, the editor left and took a different job, and she said, "You should make this your thing." And I did. So she gave me her contact, and I ran with it and kind of developed it into being my baby, really.
And I don't mean to classify you or anybody who reads copious amounts of books and does a lot of research as a nerd. I would just classify myself as a nerd. I love reading and research. When you are in your car in New Mexico and you hear, I get money, and you hear it and you're going, and at the end, Jay-Z hops on with the verse and talks about Forbes.com. Were you crying? Were you hugging the dashboard? Did you pull over and have a weepathon? I mean, what was going on?
Get to a truck stop and take a shower?
Yeah. I mean, I just remember thinking, holy cow, business journalism is a lot cooler than I ever thought it would be. And I think a lot of people at Forbes, they thought about that too. Like, oh my gosh, here's an audience that we have not been serving, and a slice of big business that we have not been covering, and that really nobody had been covering in that way.
Now, you are working on this thing called the Forbes 5, where it's the hip-hop's wealthiest artists of 2018, and the hip-hop, they're kind of the future mogul list. Can you share with us about the Forbes 5 and the hip-hop's future mogul list?
Sure. So there's three main hip-hop franchises within Forbes now. There's that original Cash Kings list, which are the highest paid acts on an annual basis. There's the Forbes 5, which is the 5 wealthiest rap acts overall in terms of net worth. And then there's the Future Moguls list, which is a qualitative kind of a cousin of our 30 under 30 list. So it's every year, the 10 rappers, producers, et cetera, the hip-hop musicians who we feel are the most likely to one day become members of either of those two other lists. And, they're all rolled out throughout the year, generally, a few months in between each one. And those are sort of the three main focal points for hip-hop coverage at Forbes.
Now, you in 2015, you gave a TEDx talk. You've given a lot of talks since then, but you gave a TEDx talk, and I like that talk because it was just you rocking the mic for a good half hour of power, and you were talking about Dr. Dre, Jay-Z, and Diddy, how they had earned, at that point, a combined $740 million in 2014. And according to all estimates I can find, now Sean Jay-Z Carter is now worth about $900 million, I believe. Sean Diddy Combs is worth about $825, and Dr. Dre's sitting around $770. My friend, I'd love to have you share your thoughts about how these three men built their fortunes. It's an astounding number. Can you share with us and you go take them in whatever order you want, but Dre, Jay-Z, Diddy, how did these guys go about amassing their fortunes?
Sure, yeah, and it's a fascinating question, and that's why I wrote my last book about it, Three Kings, and it kind of digs into the story of each one, and then kind of with the backdrop of the broader narrative of the business of hip hop. And what these guys all did is they took this thing that had been created in the South Bronx and in the 70s and the 80s, and turned it into something that was more than that. That was this worldwide, this empire, this way of life. They took hip hop and turned it into a monetizable lifestyle brand, and so it all kind of goes back to that one way or the other. Despite having the same job description of hip hop mogul, all three of them are incredibly different characters. So if you want to think about it like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I think Diddy is Michelangelo. He's the party guy. He's like cowabunga. That whole thing. He's a consummate salesman. And maybe Dr. Dre is Donatello. He's kind of the handy one. He's very focused on technology. Kind of what's next, and maybe a little quieter. And then Jay-Z, I think, is Raphael. He's sort of the wisecracking one, kind of sitting in the back, surviving off of his wit. And so they've each kind of taken their own traits and made the most of it. So Diddy, his way of doing everything is this kind of what I like to call shock and awe marketing. He's in your face. He's with the Ciroc vodka. in the YouTube videos, he's doing commercials, he's tweeting about it. He's very much not understated, right? He's just out there,
right, in
your face all the time. Dr. Dre is kind of more quiet, and if you look back at his career, he's really spent his whole time kind of in the lab crafting things, working for ages. He's only put out a few albums in a multi-decade career, and each one he seems to spend a good decade on, and same with his magnum opus in terms of business, which is Beats. So that's really, that's the only major deal he's done outside of music, and running his own label. That's also part of the music thing. So Beats being that kind of culmination of all those years of working on something, and then you have Jay-Z, who's kind of in the middle, and he has a bunch of different things. He relies on his cleverness, and he relies on kind of creating cultural cachet for himself by putting out new music, by marrying Beyonce, things like that will kind of keep his name out and people being interested in him, and then wanting to associate with the brands that he's involved with as well.
Now, when you wrote the book Three Kings, your newest book, what inspired you to write this book? Because for people out there who are not familiar with your writing, I'm not just saying this because you're a guest. You go deep, man. You're like the submarine. You're in the basement. You are going to the Earth's core. You go deep.
The magma.
It's awesome. Like your article about the Wu-Tang Clan and their album and their one copy of their album, and you go so deep. It is awesome. So you have to just
I
lose
went to Morocco. I went that deep. You go
so deep. You go so deep. I'm just telling you, I get worried about you. You're so deep. I'm like, is he going to come up for air, this guy? So when you go deep, how did you decide to write this? What inspired you to write this book, Three Kings?
Yeah, well, frankly, in all honesty, I had already done a Jay-Z book. My second book was about Michael Jackson. And what I really wanted to do was a book just on Diddy. And in fact, initially when I got the Jay-Z book deal, this is back in, I think, 2009, 2010 when I got the deal. Penguin, the publisher, came to me and they said, we want a book on Jay-Z or Diddy. And we decided for a number of reasons to go with Jay-Z. And then, by the time I'd finished the Michael Jackson book, I was ready to do the Diddy book. But by that point, they had kind of moved on, and they actually, the demand, I sat down with my agent, I sat down with an editor, and what the editor wanted was another book about Jay-Z. And I didn't want to do that because I had already done that. I wanted to write this Diddy book. My agent wanted a book about Dr. Dre. And I thought, well, these are the three wealthiest guys in hip-hop. What if we put it all together and call it Three Kings? And I remember this kind of crystallizing in my mind as I was staying at my godmother's. She has a place out on Long Island and by the beach, and I was just kind of in this very relaxed frame of mind. And I walked out, and on the table she had a copy of The Innovators by Walter Isaacson. And I thought, gee, what if we do that, but for hip hop? We take the kind of the three greatest wealth creation minds in hip hop and tell their stories. And so that's what I ended up doing. And I think the book, Three Kings is about three things. There's the biographical aspect, so you see kind of the details, how each of them came up. You get the background on the history of hip-hop, like you said, the very deep dive. And then lastly, it's really a blueprint, and it's a blueprint for aspiring entrepreneurs who want to go in and, maybe they're not as charismatic or as Diddy or as handy as Dre. But, maybe you can follow kind of one of those. Usually between the three of those guys are so different, there are usually things that you can take out of their career paths and apply it to your own, even if you're not in anything related to the entertainment business at all.
I know that I didn't ask you to do exhaustive research on me before interviewing you, but the book Life and Death by Russell Simmons, that book is what inspired me to start my first company, DJ Connection, that I sold. And at the time I sold it there, Zach, we were doing about 4,000 weddings and events per year. But there's so many actionable things you can apply to your own life if you will read biographies and autobiographies and case studies. You can apply them. And the way you write, you write for Forbes. So the way you're writing, it's not a casual, vague understanding. It's very linear. It's very specific. It's very detailed. And in your book about Jay-Z, you talked a lot about Jay-Z's, how he generated some serious wealth. And one of the ways he did that was he took the rejection that he received from a company called Iceberg, and ultimately led to the creation of Rockaware, if I'm getting that correct. Can you share about how Jay-Z's rejection from Iceberg fueled him to build something big?
Sure, yeah. I mean, Jay-Z, early on in his career, was rapping about a lot of different things, like a lot of rappers were at the time, from Cristal Champagne to whatever it was, Gucci or Mercedes-Benz, et cetera, et cetera. So Jay-Z had been rapping about this European brand called Iceberg, and, suddenly he thought, well, we're giving these guys all this publicity. Why don't we try to get something out of it for ourselves? So he and his business partner, Damon Dash, went to have a meeting with the folks at Iceberg, and they were basically laughed out of the room. The Iceberg people barely even wanted to give them free clothing. And so they kind of figured, well, we can do a lot better. Why don't we start our own clothing line? And they actually connected with Russell Simmons. At this time, Jay-Z was at Def Jam, and they kind of got his advice. He had already started Fat Farm, so he kind of hooked them up with the people who would actually, companies that actually produce the clothing, so that they could, get a clothing line out very quickly. And that became Rockaware. And I think actually that became kind of more broadly a strategy that Jay-Z has used throughout his career. Why would I rap about anything that I'm not getting paid for? So, you go and you look at everything he's done over the years, from clothing to liquor to cars. He's actually had ventures in all of these areas of his own. So Rockaware, obviously, with the clothing line. He's got Douce Cognac now and Armand de Brignac Champagne, which is a whole other great story about how that came about. And he even had a Jay-Z Jeep that was supposed to come together, and this is about a decade ago, and it never really quite worked out. And this is all in my book, Empire State of Mind. But it continues through to this day. I mean, you see him with the Budweiser Made in America Festival, and there are Coronas in his Instagram shots with Beyonce, and that all goes back to Budweiser, Anheuser-Busch, et cetera, et cetera. So everything happens for a reason with him, and there's really no such thing as a coincidence when any brand is involved with Jay-Z.
Do you? You can dispel if this is not accurate. You tell me. But I believe that I read this is many moons ago. But I believe that you did yoga with Diddy. I mean, you're close to these people. Did you actually do yoga with Diddy?
I never did yoga with Diddy. A colleague of mine did yoga with Russell Simmons.
Oh, okay, Russell Simmons. Okay.
I've interviewed both of them, but I've never done yoga with either. There was also, I think, a period of time when Russell Simmons was trying to get Diddy to do yoga, and it didn't really, I think, catch on.
So, and by the way, this is just something. I in Tulsa. Have you been to Tulsa, Oklahoma before, Zach? Have you ever been to Tulsa, Oklahoma?
I have not. I've been to Oklahoma City, but
let me tell you something you're missing out on. The center of the universe and the center of the hip hop, really the undiscovered artist that will probably remain undiscovered is Tulsa, Oklahoma. And if you came to the tourist capital of America, Tulsa, Oklahoma, we are working on something new called Broga. It's a combination of brothers and yoga. And so I think if you invited Diddy to do Broga, he would say yes.
And my favorite position is sleeping bear, by the way. It's hard. It sounds harder than it is.
These are cutting edge trends that we give to you freely.
You sleep, it's
freely.
Tough. It's tough.
Now I'd like for you to share. Can you share with us a little bit about the character of Russell Simmons. You've interviewed the guy. You've spent time studying him. Can you share with us a little bit about the character? Because Russell Simmons is one of my favorite authors, and he's been a big inspiration for me. He's arguably the father, one of the founders of hip hop music there with co-founding Def Jam. Talk to us about the character of Russell Simmons.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, not so great, right? I mean, if you read some of the stuff that's come out over the past year or so, it's a, in terms of the Me Too movement, I mean, he's been sort of the poster child of what not to do from the music perspective side, music industry side of things. So, there, still one can't really tell the story of the business of hip hop without telling the story of Russell Simmons.
Agreed.
And how he, founded Def Jam with Rick Rubin and, helped run DMC and so forth, and managed them and did things like setting up the first shoe deal that they had with Adidas. He invited these executives over from Germany to come watch their show at the Garden in the 80s, and he had them play My Adidas. And so all of a sudden 15,000 people are holding up their shell-toe sneakers, and the executives from Germany are looking on like, oh my God, this is the best marketing campaign ever. I mean, it wasn't even a marketing campaign. It was all organic. So that led to $1 million shoe deal with Adidas for Run DMC, and it really kind of ushered in the era of a lot of the things that Jay-Z, Diddy, and Dr. Dre would later do, and, that now happen also a lot outside of hip-hop. So there's no discounting his contribution as much as one can, now question his character. He was certainly, one of the founding fathers, if not the founding father of the business of hip hop.
You have interviewed some of the most prolific names. I mean, your book 3 Kings is about 3 of these guys. I mean, Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, Diddy. I mean, but you've interviewed a lot of these folks, these celebrity hip hop artists, and actually talked to them up close and personal. Can you share with us maybe some of the highlights or some of the favorite characters that you've actually interviewed or spent a little bit of time with, some of the hip hop artists that you've enjoyed meeting the most?
Yeah. Let's see. I mean, I think one of my favorites is Ludacris.
Okay.
You kind of get a certain idea of him from the songs, and then you get a different idea of him from meeting him in real life. And he has these kind of very outrageous songs and like very over the top, and but then you meet him in real life, and he's talking to you about how he wants to create storytelling for young women, and he loves his daughter, and he's got all these different business ventures. At the time I think he was working on a cognac line. He had a whole bunch of different things in the works, and I said to him, like, how do you reconcile these 2 different sides of yourself? And he said, well, it's like you have a friend at work maybe who during the week they come in, they're all buttoned up, and then on the weekend they're like, "Wah!" And he said, well, that's who I am. On the weekdays I'm Chris Bridges, and I work really hard, and I'm a businessman, and then on the weekends I'm Ludacris. And the way that he's able to move in and out of that character I thought was pretty fascinating. Not everybody is able to do that the same way, and you meet some people, they're not at all like that character.
Yeah.
And you meet other people, and they're that character all the time. I think Snoop Dogg is one who comes to mind, and he rolls in with his joint, and he's freestyling, and everything is these Dr. Seuss rhymes, and it's pretty impressive, honestly. I mean, I asked him to come up with the Forbes freestyle. I kind of challenged him to come up with a freestyle relating to Forbes off the top of his head. And, within 5 seconds he'd started, and he was just going for like a minute, like So when you make your list at the top of the year, let me make things real simple and clear. I'm number 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, and da-da-da-da-da, and the Snoop, and he just kept going. He kept going, and he couldn't have possibly written it beforehand because I just asked him the question on the spot. So, I thought that was impressive in a different way. And then you kind of contrast some of that, meeting the guys in hip hop with, billionaires in the broader industry and other musicians in the throughout the industry that I've been fortunate enough to meet. And, at the end of the day, they're all people, right? I mean, and that's kind of the unifying thing. The way that I find is best to relate to them is just treat them like people. You treat, celebrities are people too, and I think that they don't get a lot of time being treated like human beings, if that makes any sense. So just kind of shooting the ish with them and says, how's your kid? How's your wife? And they I think really appreciate that.
So you know all these artists. You do a lot of research in the space of hip hop for Forbes, and you also write about a lot of other topics. But you are the king of the hip hop mogul knowledge for Forbes. So when you decided to write this book, Three Kings, or any book that you're doing, what's your process for shutting everything down and writing the book? I mean, do you disappear for a week or two? What's your process?
Unfortunately, I can't totally disappear. They're the demands of the day job. So, I can't really go away for 6 months and just write. The way I try to do it, I guess, is, I don't really take book leave. I do work a lot on the nights and weekends. And Forbes does have a fairly liberal vacation policy. So that's really helpful. We always get the week off between Christmas and New Year's, and after you've been there for long enough, you get the 4 additional weeks. So, now that I'm a 10-year vet there, it does afford me a little bit of time to go, to go off and have time to write my book. So, yeah, I would say I try to, I'll take a long weekend here, or maybe I'll do a week there, and I try to do my writing in spurts. And somehow at the end of the day, it all gets done, even though sometimes it's rather anxiety provoking as to how and when that'll happen. And, just I look down and there's my 70,000 words. So fingers crossed it keeps happening.
Hey, Zach, Dr. Z here. When you're researching these guys, is there anything off limits to you? I mean, do you draw the line somewhere? Have you heard? Did you uncover some stuff that you said, oof, I'm not going, back up, back up. I'm not gonna publish that. I'm not gonna talk about that. I mean, where do you draw the line?
Well, I think mainly, and this might sound cliche, but is it true? I mean, that's kind of the most important part. And I don't like to traffic in rumors. So if and there've been a lot of rumors and that have been very intriguing that I haven't been able to really confirm, so I don't publish those. I do write more about the business side of things. So if I come across somebody in somebody's personal life that's not really relevant, I don't always do it, but obviously somebody like Russell Simmons, if you find out that kind of thing, I think there's also a duty to do the right thing. And, I haven't come across that kind of thing before in my writing. If I did, I would write about it,
Yeah.
But,
so if you can verify, if you can verify, you're going to write about it.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
Exactly. If I can verify it, I'm going to write about it. And, on the business side, of course, there are a lot of deals that people don't want you to know about, deals that happened, deals that didn't happen, things that are sort of not, things that happen in a way that's different from the way that they're commonly understood to have happened. And, so I try to tell those stories when I can, and I think those have been some of the best parts of Empire State of Mind, of the
Sure.
Michael Jackson book, Three Kings. some of those stories that hadn't been told before. And then sometimes you get ones that are only kind of like partially confirmed and somebody's not exactly sure how it happened, although it seems like it was a lot different than something. So, and a lot of times these stories go back many decades, and a lot of people have a lot of different agendas, right? And I mean, I remember with the Michael Jackson book, talking about how the Jacksons left their original label, Steel Town Records, in Gary, Indiana, to go to Motown. I got that story from 3 different, octogenarian men who had very different ideas about what happened or what should have happened or how they want to be remembered. And, those being Berry Gordy, the head of Motown, of course, the late Joe Jackson, Michael's dad, and the guy who ran Steel Town Records. And of course, right, everybody has a different agenda. And, so in that case, what I did is I just said what each of them said. And I said, here's what probably happened. Here's what Joe says. Here's what Barry says. Here's what I think Gordon Keith was his name said. And you kind of, at some point, this stuff happened a half a century ago. You got to just, you got to leave it to the reader and put it all out there, as long as it doesn't seem like something that's, patently false.
Well, Zach, I've got a great idea for your next book.
Oh, wow.
You can title it The Fourth King.
Really?
I don't know if you I don't know. And I know you probably haven't heard many of our radio shows or podcasts, but Clay Clark has been writing intros and rapping intros for our show that are just phenomenal. And so I'm thinking he's probably going to be the next great rapper. In fact, we're hoping he doesn't get signed and leaves the radio show, and then
what?
Shep and I've got to do it by ourselves. And here we are. I mean, we don't have the research and the work that he's doing. So you might think about that. The Fourth King. Do a little research on Clay Clark.
I think Drake might, take umbrage at that.
Oh, man.
Oh, there we go. Maybe the fifth.
The 14th king, who's the backup for the 27th king.
27th
the future king. There we go. The future king.
He could be a king someday. I don't know.
Maybe might be
working on the fief. All right. So, Zach, in your books, I just love the detail you go into. And in the book you wrote, Empire State of Mind, you talked about how Jay-Z was able to turn $60 bottles of antique gold into $300 bottles of Ace of Spades. Just poof, using hip-hop magic. How did it happen, my friend? Because that's some serious investigative journalism. Cool. I believe you had to travel to France to really get to the bottom of the story. Can you explain this story?
Merci.
Yeah, well, that was really one where you kind of just keep pulling on the thread, and then the whole sweater unravels, and a lot of times as journalists, that's what we have to do. So when I had started writing this book, the background of it was that the guy who ran the company that made Cristal champagne made this comment to the Economist magazine, and he said something. They said, "What do you think of all these rappers drinking your champagne?" And he basically said, "We can't control who drinks our champagne. Like, we don't want these people drinking our champagne, and but what can we do?" Which Jay-Z, I think, rightly took offense to, and so he said, "I'm going to boycott Cristal champagne. Will not serve it in my clubs, in my establishments. Won't rap about it anymore." And Jay-Z's as big as it gets in hip hop, and so a lot of people kind of followed his lead, and so he steered everyone toward Dom Perignon and Krug briefly, but in his mind, I think he had something else planned, because lo and behold, within a matter of months, suddenly he's rapping about these mysterious gold bottles of Ace of Spades. Well, what's Ace of Spades? Armand de Brignac champagne. It was this thing that debuted in the United States. I think it was fall 2007, I think it was. It's all in that book. Anyway,
it's in your book. That's right.
So it comes out, and it's this $300 bottle. And, here I'm writing this book, and I'm thinking, there's no way that Jay-Z is just doing this out of the goodness of his heart, right?
Right.
It just doesn't. That's just not who he is. So I kind of stay on it, and I'm digging around, and I was sitting with this guy named Branson B, who's a kind of an OG in the hip hop world, and this is in a speakeasy, this little basement speakeasy that he used to have in Harlem. And I noticed this gold bottle, and I said, well, what's that? He said, no, that's antique gold. That's a $50 bottle of champagne. It's actually made by Cartier, the same company that makes the champagne that Jay-Z's been pushing. And he said, that was a $60 bottle of champagne that mysteriously disappeared right before Armand de Brignac champagne came out. And so he basically thought that it was the same thing. So I thought, this is interesting. I'm going to try to get to the bottom of this. So I called up the Cartier people. They invited me to visit France and, check out what they had going for them. So booked myself a ticket, flew over there, and they took me on this tour down into the basement in the cellars, these ancient wine cellars that they used to, the French used to use to hide people during the Second World War, during the air raids and so forth. Amazing stuff. And when I was down there, I noticed that there were these gold bottles, but they were unmarked. And it was like they could have, you could slap one label on them and make them antique gold and sell them for $60, or you could slap another on them and call them Armand de Brignac Ace of Spades and sell it for $300. And so I kind of kept at it and poked around. And when I got back to New York, I looked up the timeline of how all this had happened, and in fact, Armand de Brignac had made its debut in the fall, but it had appered in Jay-Z's video in the summer. And I said to them, well, how did that, how did Jay-Z come across this? Oh, well, he found it in a mom and pop shop and blah, blah, blah. And, just promoted it out of the goodness of his heart because he likes it so much. And I said, well, then how did he manage to get a hold of it before it was available in stores? And then they started backtracking. They said, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. We did have some kind of relationship, and sort of came out that, in fact, this was a whole pre-constructed thing, and that he owned part of the brand, and that he was profiting off of it, which, good for him. Like, why shouldn't he? And I'd rather, if I'm buying $300 bottles of champagne, I'd rather give my money to Jay-Z than to some racist French people. Which is what the people who ran Cristal seemed to be. And I think that was sort of the attitude when it came out that in my book that Jay-Z in fact owned Armand de Brignac. I mean, some people took notice of it, and then a couple of years later, Jay-Z, made this big announcement like Jay-Z, has acquired his favorite champagne brand, blah blah blah. But when he had a stake in it all along, and that's Jay-Z. He manages to find a way to control the narrative all the time. And I think that's what he did again in this case. But it certainly was, I don't know. I mean, if I hadn't reported on it, would he have ultimately, come out and made that announcement? I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know. But that was definitely one of the big scoops of that book, and it was a fun one too.
Now, I watched one of your interviews where you were explaining that apparently you and Jay-Z had a interaction near a porta potty.
A porta potty, yes.
And apparently that's where the great conversations of hip hop happen. You say, you and me, let's meet over there by the porta potty. Was he excited by your book, Empire State of Mind?
No.
Oh.
He said, I walked out of the porta potty, I saw Jay-Z standing next to Beyonce. This was at his Made in America festival in Philly, and I said, "Oh, Jay, I'm the guy who wrote the book about you." And he pretended not to hear me. He kind of sauntered off, and then he said, he looked over his shoulder and he goes, "That book was horrible," and disappeared around the corner.
So are you mending the fence with Jay-Z?
What Jay-Z thought.
Are you starting to kind of mend that relationship there? Are you because you do so much investigative reporting, it's so detailed what you're doing. I mean, again, I know Z asked you about where you draw the line. My question for you on this is how do you get permission to do this, or do you not get permission? I mean, do you get when you make a book about Jay-Z?
Permission. No, you don't need permission to be a journalist, right? You can write about whatever you want to write about.
Come on.
He's a public figure, and all you can do is write the truth. So it's better if you can talk to him usually, but sometimes that comes with conditions and conditions that might get in the way of journalistic integrity and stuff like that. And, his camp's response when I approached them initially was, what's in it for us? And I said, well, I'm a Forbes writer, and it's a generally positive outlook. It's Empire State of Mind. And they were kind of like, well, why don't you think about ripping up your book deal, and maybe we'll let you ghostwrite a business book later, which, I don't know, that I wanted to write this book, and also I didn't really believe them. So, I went with it. And I think, I was a 20-year-old kid at the time. They didn't think I might be able to do it, especially when they were sort of actively trying to get people to not talk to me, which is something that happened. I mean, there were, people who were definitely, I got to them, and then all of a sudden it's like, is Jay-Z on board with this? Oh, well, oh no, okay, well, I can't talk to you. So, it was sort of that shoe leather reporting, like I described with Branson and going to France and that kind of stuff. And if the door's closed, you kind of go around the back and see what you can find. And that's what I did. And I think that's what happens in hip hop a lot. A lot of these guys find the door is closed, in terms of, you want to do, you want a record deal, or you want a clothing deal like Jay-Z had with Iceberg. They didn't want to give him a deal. And what did he do? He went and started his own. So, I kind of tried to take that and apply it to my own life a little bit.
My understanding is that you are one of the only people who was able to get a photo of Jay-Z for the cover of that book. And you maybe were the cause of him no longer making photos of himself available. Is that correct? Am I getting that wrong? And that you are one of the last people to be able to use his photo on the cover of a book?
Yeah, I suspect that's true. The way that...
My name is Kevin Thomas, and the name of our company is MultiClean. We are a commercial janitorial service, and we serve the entire state of Oklahoma and Kansas, and soon to be Arkansas. We have probably grown probably 5 times. We've added, I think when we first started with you, we had 60 to 65 employees. And now we have a little over 300 employees. Before we got involved with Thrivetime, we didn't really have any systems or processes in place. So I've probably been to, in 6-7 years, I've probably been to 12 to 13 business conferences. And amazingly, each time I go, I learn something new, and I'm so excited to bring it back and show the team about marketing and how to implement.
Okay, Aaron Antis, September 25th and 26th. Guess who's coming back to Tulsa? I will give you a hint. His first name is Eric, and his last name is Trump. Whoa. And his father is the 47th president of these United States. Yes, Eric Trump is joining us once again here September 25th and 26th in Tulsa, Oklahoma for the 2-day interactive Thrivetime Show Business Growth Workshop. But Eric Trump is bringing friends. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Alina Habba will be joining Eric Trump right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Amanda Grace will be in the place. Dr. Stella Emanuel will be here in T-Town in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Julie Green will be on the scene. Mel K will be here to say hey. Dave Scarlett from the His Glory team will be here. It's going to be a blasty blast right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If you want to start or grow a super successful company, if you want to make your wallet great again or make your wallet great for the first time, if you want to learn marketing, systems, scaling, human resources, accounting, social media, branding, search engine optimization, sales training, financial management, and more, get your tickets right now at thrivetimeshow.com. Once again, that's thrivetimeshow.com. People don't know this, but the Trump organization has thousands of employees. There's not 50 employees. The Trump organization, again, most people don't know this, but the Trump organization has thousands of employees. And while Donald J. Trump was the 45th president of these United States, he needed a competent man to run and execute his business plans. Showtime! So the man that runs the Trump organization before Donald J. Trump, as he was the 45th president of the United States, and now the 47th president of the United States is Eric Trump. And so Eric Trump is here to talk about time management, promoting from within, marketing, branding, quality control, sales systems, workflow design, workflow mapping, how to build. I mean, everything that you see, the Trump hotels, the Trump golf courses, all their products, the man who manages billions of dollars of real estate and thousands of employees is here to teach us how to do it.
You are talking about one of the greatest brands on the planet from a business standpoint.
Right.
I mean, who else has been able to create a brand like the Trump brand? I mean, look at it. And this is the man behind the business for the last pretty much since 2015. He's been the man behind it. So you're talking, we're into 9 going into 10 years of him running it, and we get to tap into that knowledge. That's going to be amazing.
Now, think about this for a second.
But that Clay Clark, man, he is one character.
It's a good word for him, character. Yeah, that is it.
Good, driven, smart. And I've never met a guy who was so hyper all the time. He's doing so much good. And then I met his mother, and she just says, she just lets him be Clay Clark. I mean, so he's endorsed by his mother, and he's doing magnificent work. So it was great meeting you out there and all the people that he surrounds himself with. Clay Clark starts his days at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, it's incredible. Yeah, he's a machine. He's a machine.
Yeah. But I have problems with my company starting at 9 o'clock. Yes, hundreds of people showing up at 5 a.m. in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Man, he's a leader of a leader. He's a fantastic young man.
Oh, he is.
The lineup continues to grow, and this is how we do our tickets here at the Thrivetime Show. If you want to get a VIP ticket, you can absolutely do it. It's $500 for a VIP ticket. We've always done it that way. Now, if you want to take a general admission ticket, it's $250 or whatever price you want to pay. And the reason why I do that, and the reason why we do that is because we want to make our events affordable for everybody. I grew up without money. I totally understand what it's like to be in a tight spot. So if you want to attend, it's $250 or whatever price you want to pay. That's how I do it. And it's $500 for a VIP ticket. Now, we only have limited seating here. With the most people we've ever had in this building was for the Jim Brewer presentation. Jim Brewer came here, the legendary comedian Jim Brewer came to Tulsa, and we had 419 people that were here. 419 people.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, there's no more room. I felt kind of bad that a couple people had VIP seats in the men's restroom. No, I'm just kidding. But I thought, you know what? We should probably add on.
Clay Clark is here somewhere. Where's my buddy Clay? Clay's the greatest. I met his goats today. I met his dogs. I met his chickens. I saw his compound. He's like the greatest guy.
I ran from his goats, his chickens, his dogs.
So this guy's like the greatest marketer you've ever seen, right? His entire life, Clay Clark, his entire life is marketing.
So again, if you want to get tickets for this event, all you have to do is go to thrivetimeshow.com. Go to thrivetimeshow.com. When you go to thrivetimeshow.com, you'll go there, you'll request a ticket, boom. Or if you want to text me, if you want a little bit faster service, you say, I want you to call me right now. Just text my number. It's my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number. We'll keep that private between you, me, everybody. We'll keep that private. And anybody. Don't share that with anybody except for everybody. That's my private cell phone number. It's 918-851-0102. 918-851-0102. I know we have a lot of Spanish-speaking people that attend these conferences, and to be bilingually sensitive, my cell phone number is 918-851-0102.
That is not actually bilingual. That's just saying Juan for a one. It's not the same thing.
I think you're attacking me. Now, let's talk about this. Now, what kind of stuff will you learn at the Thrivetime Show workshop? So, Aaron, you've been to many of these over the past 7-8 years, so let's talk about it. I'll tee up the thing, and then you tell me what you're going to learn here, okay?
Okay. Yeah.
You're going to learn marketing and branding. What are we going to learn about marketing and branding?
Oh, yeah, we're going to dive into, so many people say, I got to get my brand known out there, like the Trump brand, right? You want to get that brand brand out there. It's like, how do I actually make people know what my business is and make it a household name? You're going to learn some intricacies of how you can do that.
You're going to learn sales. So many people struggle to sell something. This just in, your business will go to hell if you can't sell. So we're going to teach you sales. We're going to teach you search engine optimization, how to come up top in the search engine results. We're going to teach you how to manage people. Aaron, you have managed, no exaggeration, hundreds of people throughout your career and thousands of contractors. And most people struggle with managing people. Why does everybody have to learn how to manage people?
Well, because first of all, you either have great people or you have people who suck. And so it can be a challenge. Learning how to work with a large group of people and get everybody pulling in the same direction can be a challenge. But if you have the right systems, you have the right processes, and you're really good at selecting great ones, and we have a process we teach about how to find great people. When you start with the people who have a great attitude, they're teachable, they're driven, all of those things, then you can get those people all pulling in the same direction.
So we're going to teach you branding, marketing, sales, search engine optimization. We're going to teach you accounting. We're going to teach you personal finance, how to manage your finance. We're going to teach you time management. How do you manage your time? How do you get more done during a typical day? How do you build an organization if you're not organized? How do you do organization? How do you build an org chart? Everything that you need to know to start and grow a business will be taught during this 2-day interactive business workshop. Now, let me tell you how the format is set up here. And again, folks, this is a 2-day interactive 15. Think about this, folks. It's 2 days. Each day it starts at 7 a.m. and it goes until 5 p.m. So from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., 2 days. It's a 2-day interactive workshop. The way we do it is we do a 30-minute teaching session, and then we break for 15 minutes for a question and answer session. So, Aaron, what kind of great stuff happens during that 15-minute question and answer session after every teaching session?
I actually think it's the best part about the workshops, because here's what happens. I've been to lots of these things over the years. I've paid many thousands of dollars to go to them. And you go in there and they talk in vague generalities, and they're constantly upselling you for something, trying to get you to buy this thing or that thing or this program or this membership. And you leave not getting your very specific questions answered about your business or your employees or what you're doing on your marketing. And what's awesome about this is we literally answer every single question that any person asks, and it's very specific to what your business is.
And what we do is we allow you as the attendee to write your questions on the whiteboard. And then we literally, as you mentioned, we answer every single question on the whiteboard. And then we take a 15-minute break to stretch and to make it entertaining when you're stretching. This is a true story. When you get up and stretch, you'll be greeted by mariachis. There's going to probably be alpaca here, llamas, helicopter rides, a coffee bar, a snow cone. There's just...
You had a crocodile one time. That was pretty interesting.
I should write that down and actually do that.
Sorry for that one guy that we lost.
The crocodile, we duct taped its face so that we duct taped.
No, it was a baby crocodile.
And it was duct tape.
Yeah, duct tape around the mouth so it didn't bite anybody. But it was really cool passing that thing around and petting
I should do that. We have a small petting zoo that will be assembled. It's going to be great. And then you're in the company of hundreds of entrepreneurs. So there's not a lot of people in America today. In fact, there's less than 10 million people today, according to U.S. Debt Clock, that identify as being self-employed. So if you have a country with 350 million people, that means you have less than 3% of our population that's even self-employed. So you only have 3 out of every 100 people in America that are self-employed to begin with. And when Inc. magazine reports that 96% of businesses fail by default, you have a 1 out of 1,000 chance of succeeding in the game of business. But yet the average client that you and I work with, we can typically double this. And this is no hyperbole, no exaggeration. And I have thousands of testimonials to back this up. We have thousands of testimonials to back it up. But when you work with a home builder, when I work with a business owner, we can typically double the size of the company within 24 months.
Yeah.
Double. And you say double? Yeah, there's businesses that we have tripled. There's businesses we've grown 8x. There's so many examples you can see at thrivetimeshow.com. But again, this is the most interactive, best business workshop on the planet. This is objectively the highest rated and most reviewed business workshop on the planet.
I was looking to learn how to take my business, like they've said today, from being very successful to being systematic. I've got a very successful practice in 3 different cities, make good money, just want to take it to the next level with systems and processes to where I can drive my cars more.
Paul Hood.
I've been a CPA for 33 years.
And what kind of growth have you and your great team had here over the past, let's say, 5-6 years?
For the last when I met you 5 years ago, we were doing 3 million. This year we'll do 24 million.
Whoa. And you say, Clay, I'm not going to get a ticket unless you give me more. Okay, fine. We're going to serve you the same meal both days. True story. We cater in the food, and because
simple.
I keep it simple. I literally bring in the same food both days for lunch. It's Ted Escondido's, an incredible Mexican restaurant. That's going to happen. And Jill Donovan, our good friend, who is the founder of Rustic Cuff. She started that company in her home, and now she sells millions of dollars of apparel and products. That's rusticcuff.com. And someone says, I want more. This is not enough.
Give me more.
Okay. I'm not going to mention their names right now because I'm working on it behind the scenes here. But we've got one guy who's given me a verbal to be here. And this is a guy who's one of the wealthiest people in Oklahoma, and nobody really knows who he is because he's built systems that are very utilitarian, that offer a lot of value. He's made a lot of money in the it's where you rent. It's short term. It's where you're renting storage spaces. He's a storage space guy. He owns what do you call that? The rental, a
storage space.
Storage units. This guy owns storage units. He owns railroad cars. He owns a lot of assets that make money on a daily basis, but they're not like customer facing. Most people don't know who owns the mini storage facility, or most people don't know who owns the warehouse that's passively making money. Most people don't know who owns the railroad cars, but this guy, he's given me a verbal that he will be here, and we just continue to add more and more success stories. So if you're out there today and you want to change your life, you want to give yourself an incredible gift, you want a life-changing experience, you want to learn how to start and grow a company, go to thrivetimeshow.com. Go there right now, thrivetimeshow.com. Request a ticket for the 2-day interactive event.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Thomas Crossan, owner and founder of Full Package Media in Dallas, Texas. I've been a coaching client with Clay Clark since the beginning of our business. We started about a year ago, August of last year. I had no clients, no idea what we were doing, no clue really what was going on. And now we've grown to where we've got 6 photographers, we've got office space here. I have an admin, sales person that works for us full time, developing an online system. And a lot of that growth we attribute to Clay helping us. And there's so many things that his stuff is not, revolutionary. It's not this crazy walk on hot coals and all this stuff. It's just real stuff.
It's going to be a blasty blast. There's no upsells. Aaron, I could not be more excited about this event.
I think it is incredible. And there's somebody out there right now, you're watching and you're like, but I already signed up for this incredible other program called Smoke Your Way to Thin. I think that's going to change your life. I promise you this will be 10 times better than that.
It's like I picked the wrong week to quit smoking.
Don't do the Smoke Your Way to Thin conference. I've tried it. Don't do it.
Yeah, chain smoking is not a viable. It is life-changing. It is life-changing. If you become a chain smoker, it is life-changing.
Not the best weight loss program, though.
Right, really. So if you're looking to have life-changing results in a way that won't cause you to have a stoma, get your tickets at thrivetimeshow.com. Again, that's Aaron Antis. I'm Clay Clark, and reminding you and inviting you to come out to the 2-day interactive Thrive Time Show workshop right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I promise you it will be a life-changing experience. We can't wait to see you right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Whoa. What kind of growth have you had since you and I have been working together over these past few years?
3.45 million. I got those stats before I got on here.
So you've grown by 3.45 million.
Yeah, 3,450,000.
Would that be like if you took the combined revenue, maybe doubled it? Have we gone up by
about almost 3, not quite.